And we are back with AR Sales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I am A.R.T. Bagel, and today I am joined by Christine Daigle like a bagel. Man, I could use a bagel right now, for being completely honest.
I love bagels.
Oh, love them. She is the co-writer of two awesome serials available on Kindle Vella right now. Check them out. LP Styles, I believe, is the pen
That's
name.
the pen name.
Yeah, that's the Voltron combined forces of Christine Daigle and her co-host. That they have a serial fiction show, a podcast that just goes all into Kindle Vella and serialized fictions. And they themselves have two stories out: The Molecule Thief and Dark is Away. Cannot wait to dive into this. Molecule Thief is, as you can kind of postulate, sci-fi related, and then Dark is Away is horror.
Yes.
Love both of those ideas, and honestly, I think those genres just play so well into one another. So without any further ado, Christine, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Oh, outstanding and improving, honestly. So without getting to further ado, where can people find you? Social media links, just everything.
Yeah, so I have a link tree is probably the easiest link tree, and it's just /1, the number 1, and a C, and my last name, Daigle, Daigle. So link, it's linktr.ee/1C Daigle. So that has all my stuff. So if you want to find, the writing under my own name, my Vellas, my podcasts, you can all find it in one link. It's so fabulous. I love that.
Yeah, I love it too. Now, we were talking a little bit before hitting record about various different things that you were tied to, and I'm very excited to dive into those things. And just in the beginning of those conversations seemed phenomenal. Where did you get your start, though? Where did the writing start? Where did you get the idea for the podcast?
Oh, where did I get the idea for a podcast? Well, there's a thing. So I'm kind of hooked up into the indie author community through several Slacks. I'm in a Slack through Jay Thorne, the author success mastermind. In that Slack, there's a lot of indie authors in there. And there was just so much buzz about this Vella thing back in May. I think it was May, maybe it was even a little bit earlier, maybe April, that I'd heard about it. And I'm like, what is this Vella thing? And when I'm learning all things author related, I listen to podcasts. I'm like a podcast maniac. So I went searching for a serial fiction podcast so I could learn about it, and there weren't any. So I could not find a single podcast. Maybe they're out there, and I don't know. I'm a horrible searcher, but I couldn't find any, interviewing authors writing serial fiction, talking about the craft of serial fiction. So I actually did contact my friend Jay Thorne, who is an indie author powerhouse. He's probably done like 10 podcasts. And I'm like, this is my idea. Do you think this is a good niche in the market, or is this like a laundromat idea, which is like an inside joke because at one point he was going to start a laundromat and then thought about that. And it's like, that's not a good idea. He's like, no, I really think that's a good area. Nobody's going to do that. You should probably do that. So I just started it, posted for a co-host in the Slack, and my friend JP that's now co-hosting with me is like, yeah, I'll do that with you. We know each other from writers events. So yeah, that's just how it got started. It was because I selfishly wanted to learn more about serial fiction and to learn from other authors that were doing it. So that's how we got that started.
Man, that is a phenomenal idea. What do you think that is the biggest takeaway so far?
Oh, I have heard so many authors say over and over again, just do it and spend more time writing than you worry about marketing. I mean, marketing is important, but the writing is the most important thing. You get great platforms like Vella. Amazon is already a huge platform. So, you're getting some visibility that way, sort of. And there's some issues with that right now, but yeah, everything that I've heard, the most consistent advice is spend more time writing than marketing. Do your social media posts once a day, maybe experiment with a little bit. The writing's the most important thing, and people will find you. Sometimes on serial platforms, it might take 6 months, it might take a year, but there's organic growth. So that's the most consistent advice that I've got.
Man, I have to really agree with that. And just to add on to that, I think especially I get wrapped up in this whole very quickly where I will spend too much time on a specific chapter just because I'm hung up on like 3 lines instead of just powerhousing through and then going back later, which is what you're going to do anyway when you do editing. So it's just one of those things. You really do have to just always, this is fun. It's supposed to be fun. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, have fun, have a good time, just keep going, don't get discouraged if you're not having a lot of readers initially. it doesn't mean that your story's not good. Just keep going. So that's the most I've got. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's a beautiful takeaway. So how did you get the start in writing? How did you get into these Slack meetings? Like when did you get that initiative?
Oh my gosh. So some people are like, I've wanted to be a writer since I was 3 years old. And that's not me. Like, I never really thought about writing. People are like, you have to go into science and do hard science, and that's the job, and nothing else is a real job. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. So I was actually doing my PhD, had finished, all the coursework in that, finished my internship, just had my dissertation left, got married and moved to Michigan. So I'm not originally from Michigan. And I didn't know anybody. And I really didn't want to do my dissertation because they're horrible. And I was so bored. I'm like, I think I'll just write a novel. So I'm like, I don't know anybody. I need to meet some people. I need a new hobby. I'm just going to write a novel. I got like a 95% in, first year, college creative writing. I'm going to be amazing. So I was not amazing. My first book was like a horrendous nightmare that will never come out of the drawer, but I met fantastic people. I just went on like that meetup.com site where it has like all the different groups of things in your area. And I found a writers group, and little baby writer me brought this horrid epic fantasy, probably that was more like fan fiction than anything actually great. But and I was like, here's my awesome writing. And they just tore me up. And I'm the kind of person that when I get torn up, I get a fire lit under me. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to get better at this. And that's actually where I met my co-writer for the 2 serials that we're doing here. So that's Stuart Sternberg. We met in that group like a decade ago, and we've been friends ever since. And are like, when I heard about Vella, I'm like, Stuart, let's just do these serials. So yeah, that's how it got started.
Now that is really interesting. It immediately just fired up a couple questions in my mind. What do you think was wrong with that first draft, with that first book that you wrote?
I think I was just copying other authors like we all do when we start. I think I really didn't have a voice. So I was like, this is what I like, and I'm going to do something just like this. And it was like just like that, but bad, because I didn't know anything. I didn't know about structure. I didn't know about the importance of making your reader feel emotion. I think when we're baby writers, when we start, we're very selfish writers. Like we write for ourselves. And I think I'm like, this is what I like. These are the authors I like. I'm just going to do that and it'll be great. And we don't think about that writing is for other people. And it's just like when you cook a meal, you're serving it to other people. You're not just, maybe make it for yourself, but it's not quite as fun. And I think we forget that, the purpose is also to entertain. And yeah, I think like I was like, I didn't consider my reader. I didn't consider like, how will they be feeling at this point? Will they be feeling any emotions? What emotions do I want them to feel? Do I have things like tension? So I think when you're starting out, I had no idea about structure, no idea about tension, no idea about how to provoke emotions in your reader. So for those reasons, I think it was just like a lot of things happened. But that's not a story, right? It was just a lot of things that happened.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, it's actually a great analogy of what the whole idea of like cooking for yourself versus cooking for a meal for people coming over, a friend group, a potluck.
Exactly.
It is like really a testament of how you're able to express emotions through your words, right? And not only that, but just be able to take it further and be able to express the type of emotions that you want to express, because that's the main thing. I can't tell you the amount of times that even I have tried to go this way and then it ends up being perceived that way. It's like, oh man, how did I do that? And it's exactly what you said. I was cooking for myself. I put too much salt, a little pepper. Hey, I like spicy food. But I was thinking about somebody else.
Yeah.
So going forward with that, how do you think you're blending stories now? What do you think about the idea of tension? I always joke about it with my friends. Like when I used to watch action movies and they would have that 10-second countdown, always ask yourself why they have that. As a writer, I now understand that tension.
The ticking clock, it makes you feel that tension, right? Yeah.
Yeah, tension isn't just from the tension building from the 0 part to like the 2-hour mark. You have to have that every couple minutes in order to keep the ball rolling and the person always invested in the story you're trying to portray.
Absolutely. And part of tension is that there has to be conflict, and conflict doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, there's a bomb going to explode and Am I going to try to diffuse it and not what I know what I'm going to do? Or am I going to, save this person or this person? I mean, that's a lot of external conflict. But you can have inner conflict. It can be quiet conflict, but you have to have something that's making your character feel conflicted, where they don't know what to do, where they have a choice that's really hard. And it's either going to be, bad for them, but good for someone else, or good for them, but bad for someone else, or both decisions are bad, or both decisions are good. And I think really, having those choices, and they get harder and harder. You think of a story structure almost like a funnel, like they have a lot of room at the beginning. And then with each choice they make, the choices get harder and harder, and they're under more and more pressure. I mean, that has to do with pacing. So I've learned a lot about that. And I really think that does come from really torturing your characters with these horrible choices, and forcing them to choose, using choices where maybe your reader's even going, oh gosh, I don't know what I would do. There's a bomb's going to go off. Am I going to, am I going to save my husband or my son, or like, who am I covering up? I don't know. And I think that makes a lot of tension. And then those consequences that naturally lead into the next scene and the next conflict and the next choice. And I think that keeps tension. And then the emotion part too, it's so difficult because when you even realize that emotion is, oh, I want my reader to feel some emotion, you're like, I know, I'll just make my character cry. Making a character cry does not make any readers feel anything. So it's a lot of just looking at other masters and seeing how they do it and really breaking it down. I guess reading like a writer, like I can never read a book probably as just a reader the same way again, because I'll have to go back and go, that was really cool. How did they make me feel scared, or how did they make me feel sad? And then I'll have to go down and, back and break it down. So
I feel like that even happens in my real life now. When I'll be at a lunch with a friend, they'll say something right. I'll be like, that's a good line. That's well written. There's no fat there, perfect punctuation. Like, how do you do that? Where do you get that from? It's like, no, I just said that. It's like, oh, you mind if I go ahead and take that down? But I think my favorite part about writing is not only the whole expression of emotions, but finding it in new ways. Mm-hmm. That's why I love, like, it's like what you said, when you read a book and it captures the same line, but just says it in a different way. That just makes your brain, instead of use like, a certain neuron path that's been used like 1,000 times, it just has to go a little bit to the left this time. Yeah. Things like that almost make your mouth water, right? It's like the reason you want to keep writing. It's like the beauty of the craft. So on that note, how do you find new emotions to craft? Like, how do you reach out? Like, all right, I want to talk about this. This is the emotion I want to go with now.
Yeah, so that, the best piece of advice I've got on writing emotions is, because I know emotions for me is always a weaker spot. I don't write romance. I'm not like big into the warm characters. And it's not because I don't love romance. I do. It's because it's a weakness. And I always feel like, to get better at your craft, you gotta learn in those weak spots. You got to get better at them. So I'm like, okay, I do, structure fine. I do prose fine or whatever, but I'm like, emotion is a bit of a weakness. Probably why I write sci-fi. But I'm like, so I got to lean into that, and I really got to learn how to get better at doing that, because, we always want to elevate our craft. But the best piece of advice I saw was in a book by Donald Moss, Maas, called The Emotional Craft of Fiction, where he talks about writing emotion adjacent. So if you have, for example, a character going into a burning building and you want your reader to feel scared, you don't write the character feeling scared. You write him feeling like adrenaline or excitement, and then your reader is kind of feeling that cognitive dissonance, how those things are. And you're like, well, you should be scared. So then the reader is scared for him, even if he's not scared. So writing emotion adjacent, like if you want, someone to be sad, maybe your character is not sad. Maybe they are, I don't know, angry, or like something that probably angry is a little bit too far away, but you can even just look at emotion wheels and see what emotions are kind of next to each other and not quite that one, and write something that's just a little bit close to it, but a little bit off. And your reader is like, oh, if I was in this situation, I would be feeling this way. And so then they're feeling it themselves, instead of just reading like, this character is crying. So that's kind of the best emotion advice. I totally recommend that book if you want to learn about getting deeper into emotional craft. It's called The Emotional Craft of Fiction.
Wow, that is beautiful.
Yeah.
I feel a little personally called out. I'm like, oh man, I'm trying to think about it. How many times did my characters cry? But it's a beautiful thing, because as you said, it's all elevation of the craft. Like, it's right. as you said, like being torn apart for the most part. Like a lot of people got their start in writing in like Instagram communities. I got my start in Reddit communities.
Oh yeah.
There's no love,
No.
no love, and it's
You
a
have to be brave to be on Reddit. Like, no.
I didn't know. I didn't know. I thought that, I thought Reddit was cool. They have memes. They make me laugh. Yeah, why wouldn't they be nice about my Reddit? No,
Yeah.
they're not playing. But it's a beautiful thing because now you hear those same voices in your head almost innately. It's like the souls of one-star reviews past or whatever you want to call it. That's always there now. Like but you hone into those things. There was one time that I wrote a short story and I made the mistake of putting Trump's name in there. I didn't even want it to make it political. I just said it as a time mark, a timestamp. People couldn't get over that point just because Trump's name was in there. And I learned right there, it's like, all right, don't hit hot button issues unless you're trying to hit hot button issues. You could have done anything else. The reason was I was trying to say a politician. I literally changed it in my next writing.
Fictional president name and some other time.
Generic president.
Whoever.
Yeah. That's it. President Blue Tie. That's it. I should have just gone with that one. And again, and those are the type of things that not only does it help you stray away from something, but it also gives you an identity. Because now I can input comedy into that. President Blue Tie. Yeah. They immediately makes you think that I'm like almost deconstructing the entire idea of the Democrats versus Republicans.
Yeah.
So going off of that, tell me about Molecule Thief.
The Molecule Thief.
I don't know why I thought Molecule Man for a second. That's not.
That's close enough. He is kind of a molecule man. So yeah, so it's just kind of a quirky little sci-fi. The main character is ADHD, as am I. So I really wanted to write that voice. I wanted that challenge, and I'm like, this is just going to be bananas. I'm just going to write what's going on in my head, and you're just all going to hear it, and it's going to go out on the page. And it was really fun. And, readers have really given me a lot of great feedback saying, I really love this voice. And I'm like, well, welcome to the inside of my head 24/7. But it's like that voice gets exhausting, right? Because you can't be like, oh, hello, we're having a conversation and there's a bird over here, and all of a sudden, and did you know that in quantum physics there are 4 and 5 dimensions, and you can't go with that voice because it's exhausting for the reader. So I really love him. I love my character Spencer. I love how he sees the world. He perceives things like so differently than everybody else. But so it's a multi-point of view story. So we have it from 2 of his sort of friends, their awkward friendships, and his mom. So he's in first person present because that's the voice, that's the confusion and the distractibility. And I really wanted the reader to feel that when we're in his perspective. And then the other ones are all third past tense. So it's a bit of a calmer perspective, a bit probably like more traditional writing that you would see. So that was a lot of fun. It was a super challenge to try and nail that voice. And just to see like, here's a different perspective on things you might be seeing every day. So yeah, I love it. And there's a lot of playing with quantum physics. There's a nuclear bomb. There's awkward friendships. I mean, what else do you want from a sci-fi, right? It's great.
My God, Molecule Thief, Kindle Vella now. You got to pick it up. You got to check it out. I mean, Jesus, quantum physics, nuclear bomb. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But going off that idea, just writer to writer, how much harder is it to go from third person past tense to present tense?
I think like first person present tense is probably one of the strangest point of view that you can write in, other than maybe second. Second is a thing all its own. But because it's so like, why do you want to use that? Because it feels a little bit frenetic. But I mean, for him, I was like, I want, that's the voice that I want, because he is kind of frenetic. So, I don't think it's too hard, although sometimes I'll find myself when I switch to the other point of view writing it first, and then I'll be like, oh no, we're not in first, we got to back it up. But I mean, the other voices are so different that I don't find the switch that hard, because no one else has that kind of that mad voice going on in their head, so I don't find it so hard. Yeah, it was a fun challenge. I don't know, like originally we were just going to write the whole book first person from his perspective. And I think we did first draft like a lot of it that way, or episodes, whatever. And we're just like, we're going to do this whole thing. And I think, I say book, see, now I got to get in the terminology. I don't have it right. The whole season we were going to write from his perspective, but it was too exhausting. So I love it. I love that we can switch around and be like, well, here's your traditional thing, because I think it's such a contrast to the first person. And I don't think the switching is that hard, other than if I'm writing like multiple episodes in the same day, I'll sometimes get confused. But other than that, it's a pretty quick, you're like, oh yeah, no, we're not in first, we're in third. Yeah, it's great. And continue on that way.
Oh God, I feel like there's such a, I have such a, my first book I wrote entirely first person point of view. And then I was writing my second one in the same type of momentum. And then I just realized the limitations of it as far as world building goes, double back to narration. And now going through it, I was just editing before we started talking. And even just in the edits, I still damn it, have to go back and just like, oh my God, how does it still slips even when you're not, when you're like really on a roll in your head, but then you still have to go back and be like, yeah, of course, yeah. Crush a couple cars on the way down, who cares, right? Insurance will cover it. But how does the structuring go with the co-writing a season like that? How do you split it up?
Well, we've written together before, which is funny because we did a traditionally published steampunk book called The Emerald Key, which came out in 2015 with Ticonderoga. So we've written together before, but the first book we did it really, I know it worked for us. I think processes evolve over time. There are 2 point of views, and I did the woman, the technomancer, and he did the male necromancer. So I would write all her chapters, and then we would back and forth. He would write his. So I'd first draft hers, and he would first draft his. And then we would just like go through, like, you know, second draft and then third draft until we were both happy. And it worked really well. So for Molecule Thief, I was first drafting that one. The horror serial, Stuart is first drafting. So one of us will first draft, and then the other one will go through, and we'll just go through until we're happy with the episode, and then we move on. So, and we work on an outline together. Like, you have to have an outline to co-write. I don't think, I mean, maybe someone can, but we cannot pants it. Like, we'll sit down and be like, this is the outline. This is where we're going with it. So, and it's working so far. We've got an outline for season 2. So we're just gonna write it as long as people want to read it.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, can you talk to me a little bit about the Emerald Key?
Yeah, so that was a steampunk adventure. I just was like, oh, I want to write this adventurer daughter. She's a technomancer. She's really good with all the technology. She's really not the most social. You know, it's fun doing Victorian era. I was like, I just want her to be a woman who's like, I don't want any men. Like, it's not happening. I'm into my own thing. I love science. And then all these weird things start happening. There's like these restless dead wandering the street who are eating people. And she hooks up with this necromancer to try to solve these crimes. It's almost like a Sherlock Holmes type thing, but a little bit supernatural. And it was just a ball. I'm just like, I want airships. I want creatures, you know. And Stuart looked at me like I was insane, but we made it happen, and it was a lot of fun. I really had a good time with it.
My God.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit the idea of the technomancer, or at least how you portrayed it?
Yeah, so a technomancer is just someone who really has an affinity for technology. So, you know, almost is like one with the machines, can maybe make them work better in different ways than other people can't. So we had some technology that's kind of like opening portals, traveling to different places, and she comes up with all these weird science ideas. As I said before, I was, you know, pushed into the sciences. So I started as a biochem major. I did a minor in physics. So I just am like super fascinated by all things science and technology. So I'm like, I just want someone who is super good with this, so I can just dream up all these concepts of maybe things they might have been able to do with steam power that didn't exist. And we're just going to do all these wild things. And it was so much fun.
Oh my God, I'm vibing with you. I was the exact same way. I did not think I was going to be a writer at all. I got into electromechanical engineering. Then while I was in school is when I started to have like all these crazy ideas, and then like that turned into the idea for the book, and here we are now. I have a podcast, and for whatever reason I'm talking about it, right?
Yeah.
But to me, the main driving force was always having those crazy idea about what technology can be like with my peers, with my friends, as we were just hanging out or doing whatever while we were after class or whatever. How do you think that how far do you go with it? Would you consider any of your work hard sci-fi?
I don't think I would consider any of it hard sci-fi. I think some of the ideas behind it are hard sci-fi, but I make them real layperson. Like anybody can read it. You don't need any kind of knowledge of science at all. I really kind of love doing that. Like, oh, here's this, like Molecule Thief. I just mess around with quantum physics. You know, I really and I'm like, here's a really easy explanation of what is actually going on here. We're going to have 4 dimensions, you know, where time exists in its entirety. We're going to have 5 dimensions with velocity. So 2 things are in one place at the same time, but we're just going to make it real concrete and real visual. And it's going to be really fun. I'm like, so here's string theory. For lay people, you don't need to know anything about string theory. You don't need to know about all the weird things that happen in quantum physics at the quantum level, because nothing about our world, you know, exists that way at the quantum level. You know, things are in places they shouldn't be. You know, 3 Body Problem by Six and Liu.
Yeah.
I was just, when I read that, I was like, that was amazing when he was talking about quantum physics as like billiards. And he's like, you know, at our level, you expect there's a cue ball and there's a cue and you hit it and the balls hit and they roll on the table. And he's like, but in quantum physics, maybe the cue ball is here and maybe it's there and maybe you hit it and maybe, you know, one ball flies around the room and the other one sinks through the table. And that's how things work at the quantum level. And I just thought it was such an amazing, like, layperson explanation. I really want to work that into my work as well, because I just think those concepts are so fascinating.
Yeah, that's mind-bending, honestly.
Yeah.
One of the things that got the ball rolling for me is I came up with, right, with an idea of hard light, which is like they found a way to take the Higgs boson and take the whole idea of like adding mass, and they were able to add mass to light and make it tangible. And then that like that one little revolution is what went off of all those things. But I love that Douglas Adams explanation for science, where instead of going the high like sci-fi, like very mathematical, almost Asimov level, you just go with the humor. It's like, oh, they found it by mistake because they were drinking one night and then they put that into that and here we are.
Exactly.
I love those type of it's just a different way of looking at something that's so otherwise complex, right?
Yeah. And it's just like, this is, if it was every day, this is what it would be like, this is what it would look like, this is what it would feel like. And I just love doing that kind of stuff. Really enjoy it.
Now, are there any ideas that you haven't played with yet that you're watering at the mouth to?
Yeah, like, so this, in the first season, we're playing a lot with like quantum physics and dimensions. And then, you know, I really want to blow some of that up even more in the second season, really playing with time and like, what if some of these things at the quantum level existed on a large scale? Like, our world would be so messed up. So I really want to play with some more of those ideas.
That's actually what my mind immediately went to.
Yeah.
Because my fascination with science is with the idea that if you keep on going further in, it's such a different picture. But if you go further out, it's probably the same. Like it's probably just like fractals. It just keeps on going to that level. Yeah. So if you were to assume that we consider life at this level, that means that there could be life at the bottom level, almost on some like the Dr. Seuss, you know, the Grinch was Stole Christmas thing, that everything exists on the pinpoint of a snowflake. It could be to that level, and they live in such a chaotic world that is like normal to like how would that chaos look like?
Yeah.
Phenomenal idea. I love that.
Thanks.
Yeah. So moving past the sci-fi idea and into the horror, what is the deal with Dark is Away?
So I think Dark is Away is kind of a love story from Stuart and I to classic horror. We both really love classic horror. We love slow burn horror. I loved, you know, both of us love The Exorcist. I loved that book. It freaked me out. You know, a lot of the classic New England horror, like Stephen King and those kind of things. Love Ari Aster and his slow burn, like Hereditary, all the family, you know, dysfunction. And I'm like, I really want to do like a real classic New England horror type thing with rampant family dysfunction. And it's that slow burn, that creep. You don't know, you know, if this is real or if it's in its head or if it's natural or supernatural. Those are my favorite kind of horrors. Yeah, so we're having a lot of fun with that. And this poor character, Finn, is the main character. is tortured by all manners of things, real and supernatural. And I just feel so bad for him, but it is a fun read.
Now, horror is an interesting thing to me because I think that most people, when they think of horror, they think of horror movies.
Yeah.
Or at least most in my head anyway, right? My perception. So when you consider a horror movie versus a horror book, there's completely different ways of like, there's no such thing as a jump scare in a book.
Yeah.
There's no like, oh, he turned around and then like, you know, just because your eyes can like see it. If there's like a boom, your eyes already, if there's a boom or like a at the end of the page, you have peripheral vision. So like you already kind of see it as you're reading the top of the page. Like there's not much surprise you're gonna get with that. So how do you convey that in a book, in a text template?
Yeah, and that's the thing about horror is you really need that creep, that build of tension. You know, some books are just like fast tension and over and fast tension and over, and horror is more like a whole crescendo. You're building up the tension all the way, and you know, you don't need a jump scare. I mean, you look at what Josh Malerman did with Bird Box, and that character, like if you saw the movie, it is completely different than the book. His character cannot see anything through the whole book, so there are almost no visuals except when she's inside with the, you know, windows blocked out, because anytime she's going outside she has to be blindfolded for whatever these things are going to kill her. And I just looked at that and I'm like, this is so masterful, because there is tension through the whole book because it's the unknown. Like you don't know what's going on, and I really think that's a lot of the scare factor in horror is what the heck is going on. Is something going to jump out of the basement if I go down the stairs? So I think that's part of it, is not showing the monster too early, or not showing a monster at all if you're going to do kind of, you know, that there are lots of great horror that they never show what the creature is. Yeah, Josh Malerman did a fantastic job. Joe Hill does a great job with some of that.
Oh yeah, tall grass. In the tall grass. Yeah, that's a very good one as well.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he did a great job with Nosferatu, which is pretty brutal, but in Horns, like all of those things were so good. Paul Tremblay, Head Full of Ghosts, beautiful horror writer. So definitely, I think that, and some of that thing when we talk about before from emotion, like doing something adjacent, you always see those people in horror movies who make the choice that probably as readers or viewers we wouldn't make. Like they go into the dark basement when the lights aren't working and you're like, what are you doing? But I do think those things are necessary in horror to make the reader or the viewer feel scared, because, you know, you've got someone who's doing the opposite of what you would do or something adjacent to what you would do, and you're terrified because they're going into the dark basement. So I think those are some of the techniques that you can use to make the horror scary.
Yeah, especially that type of scene. I think in a text platform, you even have a little bit more to play with, because when you're watching an actor look at the thing and go like, and then go down anyway, it's like, all right, well, what are you thinking? As a writer, you can explain those paragraphs of like, oh, I don't want to, and obviously it seems stupid, but there's just something compelling me to go down.
Yeah.
Like I just need to go down. Like it's just human curiosity is gonna kill me. The curiosity kills the cat. I'm the cat. Hi.
And there's so much dismissal of that, you know, it could be something supernatural. You know, there's always like, oh no, it's in my head. I'm sure it's fine. I'm just being ridiculous. I can just go into the basement, even though the light's not working, to go get whatever, the milk or whatever you're getting down there, right? So yeah, I definitely think that dismissal of the supernatural is also really important in horror, because it's like, I think I'm crazy. Everyone else thinks I'm crazy. I can't talk about this. This can't be true. I can't face this reality. And I do think that kind of helps build some of that tension.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone on the planet can attest to like that feeling that when all their lights are off in the basement, you're walking down, you're like, oh, someone's gonna attack me. But you still walk down, you need to get your laundry.
You do, right? You do.
Or like
someone's behind that shower curtain. You still go in there, you know, and like you're like, no, it's like not.
That's not there.
That's my favorite. Nature.
Yeah, my favorite is you're about to go to sleep. You cut all the lights off in the living room, and you go upstairs. And as you're walking, you're like, somebody's following me for sure. They have a knife. I can feel it. I can feel it in my back. But you still walk up the stairs. Like that's the beauty of horror and like the idea of that. Now, I think my favorite thing that I've kind of noticed as like talking to authors is I've noticed that a lot of people that write horror are really also into sci-fi. Why do you think there is such a that connect?
You know, I don't know. I think we're just curious readers. I love all the genres. I love fantasy. I love sci-fi. I love horror as a reader. You know, I like some mysteries. I like literary novels. I think we're just really curious readers. I don't read as many literary novels as I used to. Ever since I started writing like genre fiction, that's pretty much all I read because I'm trying to keep up with it. But I'm like, there's not a genre I really don't like. Like I like to read everything. And I think a lot of it is curiosity. I think a lot of it is curiosity about, science versus nature. And I think there's a lot of elements in that, both in sci-fi and both in horror. What's rational, what is not rational, what can we push the boundaries of? It's, and sci-fi is like, I think, really related to fantasy too. It's just like fantasy without magic. It's like, except my magic is a box or an AI, but it's not that different, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
What's the difference of me typing some code or me saying some spell? It's the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
God. Well, I think it's such a phenomenal and such a fascinating idea with the whole, like, it's not even a disparity between horror and sci-fi and fantasy. Like you said, I really think that it just depends on the light that you shine in them. And
Yeah.
because like the whole thing of science is that you have this awesome idea that you think is going to help the universe in like some grand way, but there's always a dark side to that idea. Always, you come up with rocket technology, also happens to come up with bombs. Like there's always like that double side of how this can like hurt humanity. So I think like that horror aspect is always there.
Yeah, I think so too. And someone, I wish I could remember so I could attribute the quote properly, but I can't. But someone said like the theme of sci-fi is always science will destroy the world or save it. Like it's going to be one or the other. And I'm sure there's a different aspect of that in horror too. Like being rational is either going to save us or it's going to kill us, So when we're really being like,
Wow.
no, science says there's no supernatural, that can't be happening, so I have a rational brain. Well, usually the people that are doing that in the horror, they get killed. So I think it's kind of the opposite side of its coin, but
oh my God, this is just there's nothing more that I love than like really sitting down and picking apart what genres are, because there's so much weight on them. But I feel like when you sit down and like look at it all, everything blends. Just it's more of like the well, there is like a kind of like genre tropes that I feel for the most part.
For sure.
People want, like, if you're reading a romance, you want romance going on in things.
Yeah. You
Common
need
idea.
like they have to meet, they have to have some tension, they have to break up, they have to get back together. Like these are important things. Usually someone says I love you too early, you gotta have those tropes in the romance for sure.
And definitely same thing with sci-fi. I mean, for the most part, you all like there has to be some type of development of technology, right? Some type of something, or at least some technology that has been added into the society that has changed it drastically. Like there are certain things that you have to follow, but for the most part, it really is up to the writer, right? You said it perfectly with fantasy. What is the difference between Game of Thrones, dragons, and mecha suits in some other story? Or the simulation they had in Ready Player One? Like there is no difference. It's just how you feel like talking about it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, they're all just truths about humanity, and all it's just exploring truths about humanity.
Yeah. God, there can be just volumes on just that. But
for sure,
going about that, the technical writing of it, how do you feel between traditional publishing and the Kindle Vella serializations?
That is a good question. So I've only done one book, traditional publishing with, I don't know, small, mid-sized press. So I have not done like a big 5 or 4, however many there are now, press. But, and the funny part is I've always just wanted to be traditionally published, not for any good reason other than I'm like, I don't really know how to market myself. And, we all have day jobs and whatever. I'm like, I don't know. I just want to do the writing. It's not that I wouldn't do marketing, but I'm like, it's a really like steep learning curve and a lot of time to invest. I don't know how to build a platform. Like, how does any author build a platform? I think that's always our question. How do I build a platform? How do I get more readers? I think every author is answering that. And I'm like, well, maybe if I do traditional publishing, that'll help me with some of that because I don't know how to do that. But I think the gap between the two is closing. I think all the things that traditional publishing used to do, a lot of the traditionally publishing authors, unless you're Stephen King, you're doing it yourself. So you're going to have to learn it anyway. And then when you have something like Vella that comes along, I believe in early adopting. I was like, well, I'm not the greatest marketer, but look at the platform that they're already giving me. So it's kind of a no-brainer, right? I'm like, had my alpha readers, I've had my beta readers, had it edited. I know the work is good. Nothing's gonna like, I'm not making any money with it sitting on my desktop. So like you might as well put it out there and kind of see what happens. So I was like, well, let's just do this as an experiment. And it's been going really well. I'm like, oh, look at this money coming in and I get to keep it myself and I can do whatever I want. So I think that's really nice. I really like the indie publishing. I like the traditional publishing too. I think a lot of authors are going hybrid, doing a little bit of both. And I think that's smart. Like, I think it depends a lot on the book and what your goals are.
Wow. I mean, especially the whole thing about the serialization is just, I think it indicates the future of the market. You know, I think I speak with a lot of indie authors through the platform, through Instagram, through great communities and whatnot. And the main takeaway is that we're all fighting for more views, all fighting for more readers and whatnot, right? And then you'll talk to a Wattpad or an Inga author, and they'll have like 100,000 views on their work. Now you're sitting back like, all right, now you didn't edit this, and that's nothing to say about the quality of the writing, but you didn't go through that method of it, and you're still getting that amount of views.
Yeah.
I think it's because that's basically what the future is.
Yeah. And I think, I think things change. I think people will always want stories. People always want stories, but the method of delivery changes. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think you just have to be like, okay, you know what, we're busier. Maybe we only have 5-10 minutes to read on our phone, I really enjoy it. I'm surprised. I've never read on my phone before. I do have a Kindle, so I don't mind electronic like reading or whatever, but I've never read on my phone before. And I'm surprised how much I enjoy the platform. I'm like, this is actually really fun. I got 5 minutes. I read an episode. It's cool. I give it a thumbs up. I've got the story followed, so it reminds me when the next episode drops. And, if I'm just hanging out in a line or if I'm waiting between some boring meetings or something, you can read something for 5 minutes and it adds up. Like, it's a little bit of a psychological trick, but I'm probably actually reading more than if I've sat down with the whole book to try and read it, because it looks so just visually overwhelming or whatever. You're looking at your Kindle and it's like, you've read 1%. You're like, oh gosh, I've read 1% of this book. It's going to take me the rest of my life. But yeah, I really enjoy reading all the serials on my phone.
Yeah, it's just how it is, right? We went from YouTube to TikTok. So you went from like videos that were 15, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, and now we're looking at 15-second little serps of people like, hey, what's up, man? And then like that's it. That's a whole narrative to somebody. Then you just went through a whole 3-hour movie in those 15 seconds.
Yeah.
So as that progresses and as we keep on going, I'm just so phenomenally interested in how Kindle Vella is going to keep progressing, especially when you have awesome Molecule Thief, Dark is Away, already out, season 1. Go and pick it up on Kindle Vella. LP Styles, just phenomenal. Everything we've talked about so far, you're blowing my mind, honestly. Now, speaking about the future of writing, how is the future of those two works? How are you going to deal with season 2?
Well, that's a good question. So I have season 2 outline. We have it outlined for Molecule Thief. We don't have an outline for Dark yet. So I kind of put some in you get author notes on Vella. I'm like, what do you want us to do? Do you want a different point of view from a different character? I'm like, I would love you to give me some ideas. I mean, we kind of have an overall idea and like an end goal. So it's like, well, we're going to kind of write it a little bit more like TV, like a little bit more like Netflix. So you can have mini arcs or comic books or manga or whatever you want. Here's a 6-7 episode little story, but they're all building up to the end goal. So we have this is what's going to happen at the end. And we'll just write as many of these for as long as we want, for as long as people want it. And if they don't, then it's like, well, here's the end. So we'll wrap it up because we've got little 6-7 mini episodes going on and we can wrap it up pretty quick. So we've got like 42 episodes planned for Dark is Away. The last one's dropping on Halloween for season 1.
Nice.
We're going to have to outline after that. I'll figure it out. And then we've got, I think, about 52 episodes for season 1 of Molecule Thief. And we've got another probably 50 episodes planned after that. So I'm like, we're just going to keep writing it. People are reading it. People are enjoying it. We'll keep writing it until either, people stop reading it or we get bored with it and want to wrap it up. I don't know.
Now, that's awesome. Now, you talk about the platform of Kindle Vella and you talked about marketing. Do you feel like you have to do any out of your way marketing for Kindle Vella, or do you think that the platform is enough at its infancy that you're getting good traction just from being there?
I think you get some good traction being there, but I think visibility is important. Like, I think the people that are in the top 250 or get like a trending or a featured are probably getting more reads than people who aren't in that top 50 list, because they're hard to find right now. I think some of it is that it's still in beta. The rankings are a little wonky. I think some of that will get sorted out. I'm pretty optimistic about that. But I think if you get visibility from the platform, you probably get readers, where if you're not in those top 250, you may not, like, people can't find you. I think a lot of it had to do with launch day, just like whoever was up there for whatever reason, people see it, people click it, and you keep getting readers. So, we talk about this in our Discords and our Slacks a lot about what should we do. Nobody's really done anything, I don't think, a lot yet. Like, I think some people have spent a few dollars on Facebook ads and those kind of things. But the platform is so new. I'm not sure that there are enough readers yet there to justify spending a lot of my marketing money. I think you're probably better just to do whatever social media you enjoy, whether it's, Facebook. I know some people do Facebook groups, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. I think I had more views on my Insta reels than anything that I've tried for people to find it. So that's free. So that's free. Newsletters, newsletter swaps, book funnel, there are promotions in book funnel. You can collaborate, like join up with other authors to promote. So those are the kind of things that I would be doing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with experimenting. You want to throw a couple dollars on Insta ads or, whatever. I think there's nothing wrong with seeing if you get an uptick in readers, but I'm not sure that the platform justifies like spending a lot of ad dollars just right now.
My God, there are two main takeaways that I've gotten from talking to you so far. As a writer, Kindle Vella is the move. I mean, after talking to Naomi, which was on your wonderful podcast, Serial Fiction Show, make sure to get into that. And if you're not already a fan, get notifications, follow everything in that regard. I listened to a couple of episodes. It is honestly fire. I cannot wait.
Thank you.
And as a reader, pick up Molecule Thief and Dark is Away. I mean, the serialization, just everything you said is a beautiful concept. You really can't just open it up on your phone, taking a quick dump. Hey, no one's shaming you.
No judgment.
No judgment, all right? Everyone's friendly here. Okay, whatever you're doing, you're bored at some away game that you have to go to because a friend and they're losing and you're like, I'll show my support. You just pop out your phone. Dark is Away. You give yourself a little bit of goosebumps. You forget where you are sometimes. Oh, I feel a knife in my back, right? Or you go into Molecule Thief, go into the sci-fi stuff. Don't you want to learn about quantum physics and pretend like you know some stuff? I know I do.
Be smarter than your friends and be smug about it. Come on over.
Exactly. That's how I work now. I read 3 sentences of a person that doesn't even know what they're talking about, and then I regurgitate it.
Perfect.
And that's how I sound smarter. And we all grow as a community.
We all spread misinformation.
No, but honestly, it's been a phenomenal talk. Just the future of everything that you're doing. I'm very excited, very interested. I wish you the best of luck for you and your co-host. Do you have any final words, any last things you want to say to the listeners?
I think anyone who's thinking about starting some serial fiction on your own, you should just do it. Just jump in, come on over and try reading it. The platform's a lot of fun. Like, you can read so much. They're giving away so many free coins right now. You can read so much stuff for free. Come find some great stories.
Yeah, I mean, I'm invested. Mark my words, Kindle Vella, I will be on your platform in a month and change. You have my word.
Yeah.
And without any further ado, this is the end of the podcast. Once again, Christine, Daigle like a bagel, like an everything bagel, because she really can't do everything. She really can't do everything. PhD turned writer, traditionally published. The Emerald Key already sounds phenomenal. Again, also pick up that if you want an actual hardcover book, something to hold. The Emerald Key, Technomancers and Necromancers. Yo, you got me sold. All right. That sounds great to me. And then you have the Kindle Vella for the serializations. You have everything. It really is an everything bagel from Christine Daigle. So thank you again. This is the end of the podcast. AR Sales, aka the ART podcast. I've been AR. This has been Christine. Thank you again for coming on, and check with us next Monday for our next author interview. Peace out.